Okay, Ingo, thank you so much, and welcome everyone from the NIPN teams. Welcome to our today's webinar on sustainability. Of course, at first we will have a brief rules of order slide, so please turn off your microphones and the camera. Ask your questions using the chat box while we are presenting, and then afterwards we will have some time for discussions. So when speaking or standing, it would be very good if you could identify yourself. And then also please note that we are recording this webinar so we can upload it onto our NIPN website. Our today's agenda will come with, of course, the objectives of our webinar. Then we will have a brief introduction to sustainability and different types of frameworks by Ingo. Then we will have the presentation of the sustainability study in NIPN Niger by Julia, and the sustainability plan for NIPN Ethiopia. Afterwards, we will have the round for discussion, half an hour. And then we will conclude and also identify potential next steps. To the sustainability of our today's webinar, to the objectives of our today's webinar, excuse me, we want to summarize previous discussions on institutionalization frameworks. Then we also want to understand what sustainability can mean for the NIPN platforms. But also we want to share experience on conducting a sustainability study, as we will see from Niger. And of course, with some insights from Ethiopia, we will see how to develop a feasible sustainability plan in terms of content and process. So let's get started with the introduction of sustainability by Ingo. Ingo, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Please move on. Yes, as Juliane already mentioned, there have been some previous NIPN events where different aspects of sustainability or aspects that are linked to sustainability were discussed. I hear myself, so maybe somebody is not muted. Can everybody mute so that there's no echo? Okay, thanks. So there are different aspects. Ownership is very important. You will not be able to ensure that your government would make any efforts to sustain the work that NIPN is doing or NIPN is doing if they wouldn't feel a sense of ownership. Then it's of course also important to discuss institutionalization into existing systems, processes, and also organizational units. So these aspects have been previously focused on in discussions, also because from the development perspective of the NIPN work, step by step, first it was important to really ensure ownership and then to see that institutions are involved. So these aspects were very important, and there have been already two main frameworks being introduced in this context and discussed, one of which was in the Global Gathering 2019. And this is a NIPN ownership matrix for NIPN institutionalization. It was developed at that time in September 2018 by Mokoro in parallel with developing the NIPN theory of change and elaborating it, which you may know from the previous work. There are three dimensions still relevant and valid. That is, one needs to progress in achieving the co-conditions of a platform so that this can really become effective and achieve its objective and do what it is supposed to do, and then provide value and benefit to the country and to the stakeholders in the country. There's a need then to progress ownership of NIPN itself, of NIPN as an approach. and the work plan, and also then ownership of the outputs, so that it really is ensured that the policy question formulation will process and will be owned and considered of relevance and value for the country, and that then the work that is done on evidence creation, data collection, data analysis, similarly, is not just done by a project unit, so to speak, that might come up with some kind of potentially interesting results, but where the relevant stakeholders within the country do not really feel that it is indeed of great relevance, value, and benefit for core issues related to nutrition. This NIPN ownership matrix was considered to be very complex, and maybe a little bit too complex at that time for countries to be immediately or easily adopted. Next slide, please. Then there was another framework that was used specifically, for example, for the Rapid Response Unit case study for Burkina Faso, using an approach developed by World Bank on 3 dimensions. So please, yes. So to, yeah, one moment, please. Okay. So the existence of an institutional framework, very important as a basis for longer-term sustainability. Then it needs to be assured that relevant outputs are produced at a consistent level of quality and relevance for the country of value, and also to assure that adequate sufficient resources are available to maintain the work and also the inputs that will be required. This framework of World Banks is also describing 5 maturity levels. The first one, the most basic one, is awareness about the work and the approach. Then experimentation, even though that may be a little bit might be a little bit confusing, because you're not really making experiments, but trying to figure out the best way to work and to achieve what has to be achieved or what you want to achieve. Then to expand the work and to consolidate it. The last level, the highest, so to speak, the highest level of sustainability maturity is where, in this case study, using the Burkina Faso Rapid Response Unit, was found there were still the largest gaps and weaknesses, and there's still a lot of work that had to be done there. So now, phase 2 funding, we hope that this should definitely achieve at least expansion consolidation, but when we talk about long-term sustainability, maturity will be also important. Next slide, please. Yes, to come to an end of this introductory presentation, as part of the phase 2 for most countries now, ownership is very important, and there's a specific objective included in the framework, which is evidence-based nutrition governance in NIPN partner countries is strengthened, and with 3 results about the technical output. That means national institutions provide the relevant nutrition information and also the analysis that is required for to influence policy decisions. Then that the work and the data analysis, evidence creation really results in policy enhancement, and that policy makers and decision makers consider the NIPN outputs as valuable and regularly not only use them, but actually are demanding them to help them making decisions at policy level. And then again, a very important result will be that in all countries the ownership of NIPN will be strengthened. I think that is the last slide, correct? From my for the introduction. So now we will go and give our colleagues from Niger, and Julien will kindly provide this presentation. The Francophone, the French webinar was held yesterday, and talk a little bit about their experience with their sustainability study that they conducted. Afterwards, we will hear from Ethiopia. And I think it is a very important stage now, because to achieve sustainability, it's not a matter of weeks or even months. There are different aspects of what to sustain and how to sustain it. As I said, approaches, working approaches that might involve other stakeholders. There may also be human resources required that need to be sustained. And when it comes to human resources in the longer term, if one wants to move from external project or donor funding to internal budgets, national financing, then it may require quite a complex process within the Ministry of Health or other ministries, also then involving potentially the Ministry of Finance, and that can easily take years until this would finally come through. So it is very important to really think about and plan ways how to achieve sustainability, not in the last year of the project or last year of phase 2, but to try to work on it with a longer perspective. So with having that said, I would like now to hand over to my colleague Julien to share with us some of the experience of Niger in not just developing a sustainability plan, but conducting a sustainability study. Over to you.
Thank you, Ingo. So I have the difficult task to present the study of Niger. Yeah, I'll try my best, and we try to do this sort of connection so that you can have the experience from other country, although we have some language of barriers. And I would like to thank the Ethiopian team who made the presentation of their study in French yesterday, so that other countries could benefit from it. So I'll try. It's my turn now to try to do my best to present the study from Niger. So Niger, they have conducted this sustainability study end of last year, and it was finishing beginning of this year. And the initial assumption was that the NIPN funding will end in 2021. They didn't know at that time there would be a phase 2. So they have adapted a bit the objective of the study, but it's just an indication that they really thought about this study a long time ago. As Ingo was mentioning, this was important to plan these studies in order to inform how NIPN could continue. NIPN is not really a project if it doesn't continue, or if there is no, the idea is to try to have this platform working in the long run, not to have a project with some outputs, but to try to develop this platform in the long run. So Niger tried to first to inform how the NIPN platform could be sustained, to try to analyze the recurring costs of maintaining the NIPN platform as it is, and to see how the NIPN could be integrated in strategic and financial programming documents. because NIPN is embedded in national institutions, and in order to make this kind of official or sustained, it needs to be integrated in those strategic documents. So studying how this could happen. To do this, you need to analyze a bit the strengths and weakness of the platform to see, on which basis you can continue the NIPN, experimenting what has been working, what is not really working, and try to take advantage of the strength and minimize the weakness. And then to propose a sustainability plan, sorry. Yeah, and this study was supposed to be validated at the steering committee level. So if we continue on the next slide. Can we move on to, yeah, thank you. So they first try to look at what has been working and less working in the platform. And one thing which has been well working is that they developed a macro data platform with access to multi-sectoral data and into a unique platform, and this accessibility has been ensured. So they have some data available in the platform. What has been working as well is that they have a data analysis plan, which is decided and known from the beginning by the different stakeholders, so the different sectors, the different institutions involved. They have a consensus on which type of information and analysis they want to develop by using this microdata. So they have developed quite a lot of outputs and documents and studies, which are well presented in different forms. And the issues the platform is facing a bit now is that they have some technical documents with some data analysis, but to make this information used by policymakers, they need to make those documents really in a different format with really some communication skills. So not to go beyond the technical and analytical document, but to provide something that is really directly usable by policymaker. So they have worked on a very technical aspect, and they need now to work more on the communication and the digesting the technical information so that it's understandable by everyone. Next slide. So one thing which has been working quite well as well is that because the data analysis plan was consensual and decided by the different stakeholders, the information which was produced was quite widely used for important documents and strategies of the H3N nutrition unit. So just to recall a bit the setup of the platform in Niger. So it's implemented by the National Statistical Office. So the data analysis unit is placed inside the National Statistical Office. And there is this H3N nutrition unit, which is a multi-sectoral unit above ministry placed at the presidency level, and which is dealing with multi-sectoral nutrition, which is developing the multi-sectoral plan and looking at the monitoring of this plan. So the NIPN products have been used for monitoring the PNSN, which is the National Plan for Nutrition, and so the information has been really used for some strategic documents for the nutrition unit at H3N. That's the main message of this slide. If we can continue to next one. One thing which is a bit limiting for the platform is that it's sitting at the National Statistics Office. And it's not the platform is not yet officially mentioned in the organigram. It's not. I mean, it's embedded in the institution, but it's not. How to say, in the official statistical document of the statistical office. And the statistical office is also very much organized with a very hierarchical organization. So having something a bit multi-sectoral is not natural to this institution, and it's a challenge to make something multi-sectoral in an institution that is very hierarchical. The other thing is that I think a strong message that applies to a bit everyone is that the past experiences show that financial sustainability is more important than the institutional form. So, the key to sustain the platform is to find the money and to sustain the financial investment, and then in which form it will end up in the institution is a second, well, is something that comes after. But first and most important, you need to secure the funding and then look at the institutional setup. So there are some challenges in the institutional setup, but it's more about the financial investment. Next slide. Another point, so, and this will talk to most of the platform, I guess, is that the platform can work only with the sector providing some data and some information, which are produced regularly and of high quality. So some of the results are quite uneven. The indicators useful for analysis are well identified, but what is taking time is to have some kind of homogeneous historical series, which is going a bit beyond the classic monitoring. And one of the key messages is to sustain the platform, to make it a multi-sectoral platform using multi-sectoral data. There is still a strong need to maintain the support to the sectors. In order to continue feeding the platform with sectoral data, still the sectors are not strong enough to provide this information timely, so that the platform can function really regularly and dynamically. So in the sustainability, to sustain NIPN, you need to support the sectors and to continue this support. That's something which was done in phase 1, and that is still planned in phase 2 as a really important element for the platform to function. Next slide, sorry. Yeah, that's well, I will not stay a long time on this slide, but it's just to say also, if you want the NIPN to continue, you need the institutions that are hosting the platform to continue as well. The HC3N is a recent institution, so there was still some question about whether it's going to continue or not. There's been some recent national election in Niger, and the future of this institution seems to be positive. I mean, it will continue. In which form, it's a bit still under discussion, but it's also one element of the sustainability that those overarching multi-sectoral bodies are often recent, and there is still a question of their fragility or their sustainability as well. For the statistical office, of course, it will stay. There is no problem, no question about that, no risk. But for the multi-sectoral nutrition body, the risk is higher, and that's an open question which was studied in this report. Next slide. So a bit in a nutshell of what has been working and how the sustainability can be implemented in Niger. One of the key results is that the precondition for sustainability are met. Is that there are some basics which are here. There is a demand and for information. The products and the services have been well defined, they have been well implemented, and they have been appreciated. So there is an added value of the platform in Niger. So this is really some precondition, and those preconditions are fulfilled in Niger. So we can go to the next step. The next step is to see some regarding the technical feasibility. So in Niger, there's been a lot of capitalization, so knowledge management has been done from the start. There's been a lot of capacity building activity, but there is still some more to do in the transfer of responsibility. So that's something that needs to continue and to continue further if we want the platform to be sustained, to really transfer the responsibility and to continue the capacity building activities. And so the other part, the other element, which is really something important to keep in mind, it's not only about NIPN, it's also about the contributing sectors. And these the sectors in Niger have structural difficulties which are inherent to the functioning of the national statistical system. And well, it's more on a long-term approach, but it's something that cannot be, it's an element important for the sustainability. Next slide. So what are the strategies for 2021? First, as we mentioned, is that the preconditions for sustainability are done, but still the platform is not yet fully incorporating in the different strategic documents. So, for example, I mentioned that the platform is not officially mentioned in the organigram of the National Statistical Office. So there is a revision of the National Statistical System that is planned. So you need to, the platform will need to work on this revision to try to include the functioning of the platform in this new plan, so that it's officially integrated. So there are other strategic documents, but the main message here is that now that the platform has shown its added value, now that it's well embedded in the different institutions, that now that there is ownership, that everyone has a consensus that they want the platform to continue, this needs to be kind of officialized in the different institutions where the platform is working. Next slide. So the challenges for phase 2, which are quite a lot for all of us. So the products from the platform are relevant and have some added value and are used in the policy making. So this level of relevance and of quality of information produced need to be maintained. And for phase 2, it has been concluded that it still requires some external inputs in terms of technical assistance and capacity building. There is still this, there is a work stream which has been a bit an idea which has been quite well tested and implemented in Niger, is that the platform has been quite active when it came to complementary tools or methodologies that were new to Niger and related to nutrition. So there is when some new approaches to data collection or new methods were designed in Niger, the platform was quite active about this, and and this was thought to be a good strategy for the platform and a good added value to be able to test a bit of those new approaches to nutrition data collection, and they want to continue this approach as it's perceived as a good added value of the platform. They need to continue and maybe further transfer the skills to the statistical office. For the moment, the NIPN team of the statistical office is mainly funded by the project, and there are some part-time staff from the statistical office who are also working on the platform, but the connection needs to be strengthened and the skills to be transferred more completely, or to go a step further in that direction. And not only technical skills, but also responsibility of product development, so to the statistical office and HC3N. For the moment, it's been very much managed by the core NIPN team, but there's something more to be done, so that the responsibility is really taken by the national institution, not the NIPN team within the national institution, but the national institution itself. Yeah, so the subnational level is also something they want to develop on phase 2. Niger is very centralized, but there are very different situations from one region to another. And for phase 2, that's really something they want to develop. And we've been mentioning this SIM for NIPN for a long time ago. I think for phase 2, quite a lot of NIPN platform are thinking about that. There is a case study which is going to be released for Guatemala, but that's definitely something that is really in the radar for Niger, and I guess for quite a few NIPN platform for phase 2. And they want to continue their support for the monitoring and evaluation of the National Plan of Action for Nutrition in Niger, and that's also something where they found some added value. So that's a bit the different elements they want to develop for phase 2. If we can move to next slide. Yeah, so one thing that we've been talking a bit yesterday, and that is appearing in their report, is that they tried, and that's the first step for everyone, I guess, is to see how much would it cost to sustain the platform. So first, the question is which form you want the platform to continue, and what will it cost, and who is going to take care of that cost. So in Niger, they have identified okay, how many products have been delivered, how much time it needs to produce information the NIPN has been producing, what is how many products do we want to develop in the future, who is going to be involved, HC3N, INS, what type of skills are necessary to continue, and finally they came up with a financial plan. So I think which is a really strong basis for discussion and negotiation. And well, as naturally the investment needs are essentially immaterial, so many in terms of human resources and communication. Yeah, and so they have estimated a total cost of 3.2 million euros. Yeah, I don't know much the detail of this, so I will pass for that. But just the point is that they did this financial costing with a specific method, and this is in the report. Next slide. Yes, thanks. And I give the floor to the NIPN in Ethiopia to present their experience. Story.
Right, I am Muse Saunet from Ethiopian NIPN team. I'm working as a monitoring, evaluation, and learning officer. In this webinar, I will present the sustainability plan for the National Information Platform for Nutrition, NIPN, in Ethiopia. So in this presentation, the following outlines will be covered. Introduction, objectives of the sustainability plan, fostering sustainability, future plans, and fundraising plans will be covered. Just to start from the introduction, the NIPN in Ethiopia was launched in 2018. Since 2018, hosted within the Food Science and Nutrition Research Directorate of the Ethiopian Public Health Institute, EPHI. Sorry, I will use some abbreviations throughout my presentation, so let you consider please EPHI as Ethiopian Public Health Institute, EUD as European Union Delegation, IFPRI as International Food Policy Research Institute, NIPN as usual. Let you consider it please. Thank you. In this regard, the NIPN Ethiopia was got technical support from the International Food Policy Research Institute. The NIPN involves many nutrition stakeholders in its implementation, working on nutrition for the reduction of stunting at national level, to ensure its activities are aligned with the needs of the National Food and Nutrition Strategy and its stakeholders. The NIPN applies a dual approach in the oversight of its implementation. The first approach is the NIPN Advisory Committee. It provides high-level advice. These committee members are nutrition professionals and nutrition specialists and belongs with decision makers from different ministries, and they meet twice a year. The second approach is the National Nutrition Program Monitoring, Evaluation and Research Steering Committee. Provides advice and guidance on operational issues and NIPN implementation. Thus, committee members are from different sectors, and thus members will meet 4 times a year. Next slide, please. First phase of the NIPN Ethiopia will end by 2021. As we know, this plan was prepared in this assumption. So the NIPN and the IFPRI team sit together and discussed how to sustain the project. So finally, we developed together this sustainability plan. This sustainability plan has its major objective and specific objectives. The specific and major objectives are included in the document. So I will try to mention some of those issues. Regarding the overall objective, the overall objective of the sustainability plan was to describe how the NIPN will continue beyond the project end date, December 2021, and ensure long-lasting impact in the nutrition sector. This document was prepared before. Now it will continue for the next 3 years. So it might need a sort of revision regarding this document. Next, based on these general objectives, there are 3 major specific objectives. The first one is the NIPN's intervention and specific actions which foster sustainability. The second specific objective is the future plans of the sustained use of NIPN and its services. The third specific objective is the NIPN's fundraising plan to diversify its funding portfolio. So this set of objectives Through the set of objectives, the NIPN will continue to generate high quality and reliable nutrition information and evidence in Ethiopia to influence and support decision making related to the nutrition policies and programs at national and subnational levels. Next slide, please. The sustainability plan has tried to mention some issues, basically the fostering or adopting the sustainability plan as well. In this fostering sustainability, 3 issues are indicated in the document. The first one is proximity to national nutrition decision makers. The integration of the NIPN within the existing government institution in Ethiopia ensures the NIPN is country-led and country-owned and reinforces the sustainability of the platform. Basically relies on the existing government structure. EPHI chairs the National Nutrition Program Monitoring, Evaluation and Research Steering Committee. NIPN helps to structure and organize this meeting every quarter. The NIPN Advisory Committee members are high-level officials with close links with ministries and decision makers. So the NIPN works closely with different stakeholders to adopt sustainability. Next slide, please. All right. And the second issue in fostering sustainability is multi-sectorality and institutional capacity strengthening. Sorry, there is a misspelling. Multi-sectorality and institutional capacity strengthening. In this regard, strengthening, monitoring, evaluation, and research capacity within EPHI and across multi-sectoral NIPN stakeholders was done. So we do have short-term trainings in specific areas within the NIPN and outside the NIPN as well. Long-term mentorship was done. There was also funds for PhD students from different sectors like Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, EPHI itself. A total of 6 students are taking their PhD studies presently. Multi-sectoral engagement in NIPN activities. Different sectors participated in different NIPN interventions like policy question formulation process. In this process, all sectors are participated. In capacity need assessment, NIPN made a capacity need assessment in 2019. All sectors were participated in this capacity need assessment. Trainings, policy and research seminars and webinars, responding to research questions like WASH, Ministry of Health for the National Nutrition Program second coverage report, and other issues are done with in this regard. The third issue in fostering the sustainability is, next slide please. Thank you. The third issue is documenting approaches as guidance documents. In this regard, multiple documents and processes developed to ensure institutional memory and sharing knowledge. Example, the NIPN communication strategy, the NIPN monitoring and evaluation plan, the sustainability plan that we are discussing today, the guidance, the guideline for rapid literature reviews, guidelines for the data repository, research outputs documented, blogs, events, pages, and blogs shared via website and social media accounts. All these are documentation processes just to ensure the sustainability issue. These documents are uploaded in our website. Please, you can visit our website. Next slide, please. All right, the second issue is the future plan. The sustainability plan document has tried to mention some issues as a future plan for the NIPN to be sustained in the future. It will strongly coordinate with its current donor to continue as it is. The first one is continuous support from the European Union delegation. Currently, the NIPN is fully funded by the European Union delegation in Ethiopia, and it is unable to implement independently sustain its implementation when the project ends. So sustainability issue has got a due consideration. So in this regard, securing no cost extension from the EUD to start in 2022 was done. Conducting meetings with the EUD and IFPRI to plan for the non-cost extension. In addition, preparing documentation and justification for the non-cost extension together with IFPRI and EUD done. Develop clear vision and plan for NIPN Ethiopia with non-cost extension and NIPN second phase supporting it jointly in 2022. The NIPN 2 was not yet a reality. We developed the sustainability plan before, so this some of activities are not included in our sustainability plan document, but just these activities are ongoing and then to continue the second phase of the NIPN in 2022. Preparing the NIPN for the second phase of NIPN. There is a sort of preparation. Participate in appraisal meetings, debriefing meetings with GIZ and EUD. We'll start to develop a clear vision and plan for the NIPN Ethiopia in the 2022. Engage with GIZ to finalize project description and contracts with EPHI and IFPRI for NIPN second to start in 2022 for the next 3 years. Next slide, please. The third issue in the future plan was a vision, plan, and implement NIPN interventions. In this regard, communicate clear vision, results, framework, and activities for the NIPN will be done. Ensure NIPN continued relevant and space within food and nutrition strategy coordination structures. Support the food and nutrition strategy, monitoring and evaluation framework and implementation. Contribute to the multi-sectoral platforms and programs will be done in this future plan. Next slide, please. All right, the third issue in this sustainability plan document was the fundraising plans. In the document, the fundraising plan was very clearly shown and written. Just to show you some highlights, two basic issues were raised in the document. The first one is fundraising for new potential donors. Search for other new potential donors to cost share interventions with the EUD in support of the NIPN's activities. In this regard, some activities were listed. We would establish a fundraising committee and fundraising strategy. This is stated in the document. We will conduct a donor landscape analysis. We will develop NIPN concept note and flyers together targeting interests of donors, just to have a sort of information about the NIPN. Conduct individual meetings with new potential donors and share materials. Continue and increase visibility of the NIPN and outreach. Train staff in resource mobilization, proposal writing, and fundraising processes. In this part, these issues will be done, and these are clearly shown in the document. The second issue regarding the fundraising plan was co-financing through internal sources. Second slide, please. Thank you. Advocate for the institutionalization of the NIPN within EPHI and have funds allocated to it. In this regard, some activities were listed down. Develop key messages to make the case for the NIPN's institutionalization. Establish high-level committee, EPHI leadership, advisory committee members to advocate for NIPN institutionalization. Develop scenarios, documents with staffing, interventions, budgeting for institutionalization, and conduct meetings with the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Agriculture, and others to advocate for the NIPN institutionalization. These two basic issues are included in our document regarding the fundraising plans. So the sustainability plan was formulated in this regard. This is a highlight. Thank you for your listening. This is a highlight for the NIPN Ethiopia sustainability plan. If you have any question, you are welcome. The NIPN Ethiopia team is ready to react. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to our colleagues in Ethiopia to sharing the experience with developing your sustainability plan, and also for Julien with a hard task to do a presentation of somebody else on their behalf. I think it was very well done. We are a little bit late, but I think we still have some time for question and answers, and I would expect, in fact, that there should be quite a lot of questions, because I know that some countries are currently planning discussing how to move forward to plan sustainability of NIPN in their country. For some other countries, it may still be a little bit coming later, but as we mentioned already, to achieve sustainability can take a long time. So it is better to start as early as possible to go through the different aspects of what needs and what should be sustained. So may I just invite now, are there any questions or comments or anything from our colleagues here on the call? Please, over to you. Anybody who has a question or a comment?
Hello, Ingo.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, this is James from Kenya. I start by appreciating the two presenters for well-detailed presentation on the sustainability plan. Maybe one is an observation I want to make, that going by the case of Niger, again, it comes out very clearly, like the challenges they are having are similar to what we're having in terms of doing the scanning of the environment. And I think that is something that we could be able, also as we move to the next step, we could be able to take note of. But one thing that I would like maybe to understand, especially from Niger, from the presenter, he mentioned that the platform is still being coordinated by the project team. How are we going to ensure that now we institutionalize to make it a kind of coordination that is already embedded in already existing institution? Maybe that's something that I may seek some clarification on that. Then the second issue that I also have, from Ethiopia, I know again the NIPN is already embedded on IFRI, and from my understanding is that we really need to make sure that we bring on board all the institutions that have some interest in nutrition. Those institutions each of them have individual mandates. So how do we synchronize to make sure that NIPN activities is well coordinated and well owned by all the relevant institutions that pertains or have interest in nutrition issues? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, James, for the questions. May I ask our presenters who would like to respond to the question? We have another question also, which is in the chat box, and maybe first we respond to James' question, and then we can pick up the question of Lillian.
Hello. So this is Julien. So try to answer on the behalf of the team in Niger. So the data analysis team funded by the project is sitting in the National Statistical Office. The coordinator of this team is a regular staff from the National Statistical Office. So the NIPN is embedded within the National Statistical Office. What remains to be done to be fully embedded and fully owned is that probably, let's say that for the moment, the Statistical Office accepted to host the NIPN to see how it was working. It's not natural in their way of working, as they are very hierarchical and very sectoral. They don't have some other multi-sectoral platforms, so it's not very natural for them in the way they are organized. So for the moment, it's working well. The products are owned by the management, the line management of the Statistical Office. But let's say that if you want to sustain the platform, you need to go further and to have a real commitment from the National Statistical Office to say, okay, so we want to go in that direction. We see the added value for us as well, and we really want to have a multi-sectoral platform. And one way of doing this, and I think that's my personal message, is that also you need to work on the national statistical strategy. As NIPN, we are working a lot on the multi-sectoral plan of action for nutrition, but there is a multi-sectoral plan of action for statistics, as you well know, James, as you are all in a statistical office. You have this national strategy for developing the statistical system, which most of them are going in this direction of sharing data across sectors, being a bit more multi-sectoral, trying to have some platform to share the data. So let's see NIPN as contributing to this statistical strategy. But for Niger, and I think for many platforms, there are some connection. It's working well, but it's it's not in the strategic document. The platform is not in the official organigram. The staff is not fully funded by the Statistical Office. So if you want to move a step further, you need to work in that direction. And one way the platform is doing is to try to see for phase 2 how it could be more incorporated in the national statistical strategy. The other approach, I think I mentioned it, but very briefly, is that there is a kind of a trade-off between effectiveness and efficiency. For the moment, the platform in phase 1 tried to produce a lot, to produce some, at a quite rapid pace. So for that, maybe taking advantage of the technical assistance, having some external consultant to do the work, and to be really efficient, to really produce the report. But if you want to be sustainable, maybe you need to reduce a bit this effectiveness and being more efficient, and try to be maybe less ambitious, or go a bit more slowly, but to make sure that these products are really developed by the national institution. So to go at the pace also of the national institution, which have financial constraint and human resources constraints. So you can go step by step. We've been going quite quite fast in the phase 1, but maybe for phase 2 to go more for the efficiency of the use of the funding, and to make sure that it's fully embedded in the national statistical offices and the national institution.
Okay, thank you very much, Julien, for again responding on behalf of our colleagues from Niger. May I ask also our friends from Ethiopia to respond to the question that James had for you?
Okay, thank you, Ingo. Let me start, and then my colleagues also would add on that. Sorry for the inconveniences. There is a construction going on next to our building. That's why it's a bit noisy. Thank you, James, for that good compliments and the question. So far, NIPN is trying to engage other institutions also on board. For example, we invite other institutions, stakeholders, including from the agenda setting. The presenter, Musi, was telling us we have a quarterly meeting of multi-sectoral offices. So for that meeting, we start inviting them also even to contribute in the agenda setting. So we do plan together. And also, if we know that they have accomplished research, we invite them also to present their output in that multi-sectoral meeting. And also, for example, we are also organizing webinars. So during those webinars, we invite them either to present their experience, or to react, or to reflect as a panelist if we invited someone to do the presentation. So we engage them either by making them a panelist, or by inviting them to present their experience. Recently, for example, we had a webinar on productive safety net program, which is organized by Ministry of Agriculture. So we had a presenter also from Ministry of Agriculture. And the other way we engage them is by involving them in capacity building activities. NIPN is giving different kinds of capacity building, for example, on STATA, on project management, on such kind of training. We always make sure multi-sectoral officers are invited, and multi-sectoral officers are involved, or they are also taken part of the capacity building. So by this kind of activities, we engage them to our knowledge, to the best of our knowledge, we engage them good. Apart from that, for example, NIPN has its own output. We prepare policy brief and report and research briefs. So in such case also, starting from the onset, we engage the program people. For example, all the research people and the data analysis unit cleans the data and prepares some kind of result table. So before we start writing on the report, we engage the program people. For example, recently we have finished our issue brief on WASH. So for answering that WASH question, we engaged people from one WASH program, from Ministry of Water and Irrigation, And we have also engaged another person working on the program from Ministry of Health. So like this, we are trying to engage sectors in different activities. We will try to engage them more in the coming few years. Maybe if there are additional inputs from Cornelia, I saw Cornelia also is on board. Muse or Cornelia or Tersit or Hasina, you can also contribute. Thank you from my side.
Anybody else? Yes, please, Musi or Cornelia, do you want to add something?
Just to add something about. Thank you, James, for your question. Just to have some clarity regarding the NIPN Ethiopia. The NIPN Ethiopia is established in Ethiopian Public Health Institute, not in IFPRI. IFPRI provides technical support for the NIPN Ethiopia. In this regard, Ethiopian Public Health Institute is a research institute, basically nutrition and health-related researches at national level are done by the Ethiopian Public Health Institute. So it is an opportunity for the NIPN Ethiopian to sustain in the future, and working closely with those activities with EPHI and other sectors working on nutrition. So just to have this information, thank you.
Sorry, Arigash, we have a problem to hear you. There's a problem with your audio.
Yeah, can I add two more points?
Okay, now we hear. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You know, I forgot to include that the NIPN annual plan is also incorporated in Ethiopian Public Health Institute plan. So in that is one point I want to make. And the other one is recently Ethiopia has launched the food and nutrition strategy, which has 10 years plan. So even the NIPN activity is also included in this strategic plan, in this strategic document. Thank you. I just wanted to make these 2 points.
Okay, thank you very much. There was also a question for Ethiopia by Lilian. I don't know whether some of that may have been answered already. If I just try to summarize the question, that what she has heard is that sustainability requires first to be clear about human resources, so dedicated positions to be sustained and then to be planned for, then to agree on the sustain this development of certain products, which was number 3, and then the assurance of having funding and resources available. And I noticed actually that in Ethiopia you were talking about donors, which is still external and not really internal. And when it came to internal, it was mainly the EPHI, but not necessarily Ministry of Health or others, or also involvement of Ministry of Finance, which I would wonder whether that would be required to really ensure the financial sustainability or the funding of what you would want to sustain. I hope I have not completely got it wrong, Lilian, what you were asking for. And I see that Cornelia has raised her hand. Maybe you want to respond to that and perhaps also respond by doing so to the question of Lilian. Over to you.
Yes, thank you. Maybe let me just, can you hear me okay, first and foremost?
Yes, we hear you. I mean, I hear you very well. I assume we all hear you very well.
Okay, now let me just quickly respond first to your feedback. I think, you know, Julian's presentation actually on one of the slides says, you know, the financial side is actually more complicated in terms of sustainability than the institutional side. And I think that is basically what we were trying to say in the slide deck as well, is, you know, securing the financial side of things is cardinal. And the way the team proposed to go about that was, one, to to start the lobbying, if you will, to institutionalize the NIPN within the government structure. It is part of the government structure at the moment. Some staff are full-time government staff, some staff are part-time government staff, part-time EPH NIPN staff, and some staff are full-time project staff. So, you know, the last slide that Musi presented explained that, you know, the team has not done a study to the same degree that Niger did, to look at what does that sustainability actually mean within the government structure. So first and foremost, the team described some steps, but part of those steps were also to come up with different scenarios, because we know the government's coffers are not unlimited. And it does actually take conversation with the existing institution that NIPN is based in, which is EPHI, which is the research arm of the Ministry of Health. But we also included a focus of discussion with the Ministry of Health, with the Ministry of Agriculture, with the Ministry of Finance, you know, to start that process of really looking at institutionalizing the NIPN within the government structure, being absorbed by the government structure. But that would require coming up with different scenarios of which staff would be absorbed, which activities would be funded, how would those funding streams fit within the yellow book of the government, for instance. So we did start that plan, that thinking, although, you know, at this point in time, it is still in its infancy, in terms of full-blown sustainability thereafter, if you will. So I'm not so clear exactly what Lillian's question was. So if I haven't responded to it, please let me know. These are just some reflections. Thank you.
I think Lillian's plan was actually mainly about the agreement of the government to what is proposed to be sustained, whether there's already a green light saying that the government agreed to what you're proposing.
Okay, you know, the fact that EPHI has agreed to absorb the NIPN within its existing structure is already testament to its engagement in the future. However, and I would let Aregash chime in here as well, I mean, taking that the next level further is what I think the team is planning to do with the sustainability plan. Some of the staff, as I mentioned, are already full-time government staff. However, at what level will the NIPN activities, as they will be projected in the next 3 years, be absorbed by the government or not? Those activities and those HR staff questions, institutional and financial questions, are the ones that would require a long, you know, I don't want to say a long-term vision, but it does require planning, advocacy, discussions with high-level staff at different levels. Let me see if Aregash wants to chime in. Thank you.
Okay, and just before Aregash, just 1 minute. After you finish, I would like also then to call upon our colleagues from Laos, whether they have some specific question, and then from Bangladesh, whether they have some specific question that would be of interest for them. So also to give them the opportunity afterwards to come into the discussion. But please go ahead, Aregash.
Thank you, Ingo, and thank you, Cornelia, for nicely describing or answering the questions raised from Julian. Just to complement on what Cornelia said, in addition to existing staff, for example, out of those 6 PhD students, most of them, like 5 of them, are full-time staff of EPHI, which we think that they will continue the NIPN, the activity of NIPN upon their return. And the other thing is, like, the activities of NIPN are already aligned, or they are already part of EPHI annual plan. So EPHI reports this activity to the Ministry of Health. So in that way, the activities are already absorbed. And apart from this, the fact that NIPN is giving a webinar and giving a different type of capacity building activities, it has already increased its visibility among nutrition stakeholders. So as EPHI, we don't want to lose this good opportunity, and we want to continue the momentum by engaging, by continuing webinar and other communication platforms so that the nutrition stakeholders are on board, and so that they are also they can also make use of the available information. Apart from that, EPHI has National Data Management Center. So as we all know, one of the main activity of NIPN is to have a data repository. So we are working towards having a centralized data repository, which fits into the National Data Management Center. In that way, we can make sure that the activity of NIPN is already absorbed by existing structure of EPHI. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Arigash, for all this interesting information and experience that you're sharing from Ethiopia. May I now ask first our colleagues from Lao PDR? In previous discussion, I knew that you were not yet in the stage to start developing the sustainability plan, but I think you were in the process of discussing it. Are there any specific questions or comments that you would like to share here with us? Over to you.
Hi, this is Anna. We don't have any specific questions as such. Thank you for good presentations, and also for the NIPN team to allow to learn from the other countries. We are on the same pathway in terms of the including as many sectors as possible, engaging nutrition interventions in Lao PDR through different training sessions and so on, both internal and intensive trainings. So I think it's also, step by step in a slow process, but we are in the process. But further work on the sustainability plan, I'm not aware of that. Maybe Prosper will know more about that. But it's very much, constantly engaging with the different sectors, having different training sessions, both with the policy analysis unit and the data analysis units. And then, learn from the other countries also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anne, and thank you to the team of Lao PDR. Last not least, our colleagues from Bangladesh. I've seen Mr. Shahnawaz has left. I don't know whether he returned to the webinar already, but are there any questions or comments from our friends from Bangladesh? Over to you.
Thanks, Ingo. In fact, no questions so far, but what we have done, I can share in brief. That is, we are working for data repository in the Bureau of Statistics. At the same time, we are making some MOU with government entities like Bureau of Statistics and Bangladesh National Nutrition Council, and we are unveiling these things, and probably by next few months we will come with some good results. Thanks. Okay,
thank you very much. If I may, before perhaps concluding the discussion, also just add a few views from my experience on the problem of sustainability. You and several parts and pieces, bits and pieces of that we have discussed in one way or the other. There are different aspects of what and how sustainability, so what could be sustained and how. It's not only the whole NIPN as a unit with a certain number of people with the same work plan to be requested to be sustained in full as it is. There may be a need for certain positions to not to completely disappear, because some work might require some additional dedicated persons, in which case, depending on the settings, you may have to go through a process of first within the relevant ministry to request the creation of a civil servant position, which might require good advocacy, which also, in which case it also would help if you can provide actually or prove the value of the work of NIPN by showing how the data quality has improved and maybe how decisions have been influenced by evidence, which in turn also might potentially have made better use of limited resources. So some positions might have to be sustained, in which case, as I said, it might be a lengthy process within one ministry, and when that ministry would agree, then the ministry might actually have to then request this additional position to be really supported by funding by the Ministry of Finance. Some other position or work may not necessarily have to be retained through a person, but the work of, or some of the work might potentially could be distributed to others, or also to certain stakeholders who might already be involved in the current process, not necessarily as internal NIPN members, but perhaps as external NIPN partners. And some of the approaches potentially could then be sustained through other means like multi-sectoral information management working groups, or so on. And there are some other aspects. We were talking about data repositories, etc., tools that once created can be sustained with potentially relative little additional funding needed or human resources to really maintain them being needed. Also, a lot of the training capacity building might be able to sustain by involving existing training institutions so that they can continue future training, similar training by using the same materials, etc., etc. So there's a lot really to think about, and that again, we have heard about the different approaches here, which will hopefully influence or have been also of interest for others to see how you can plan now in future the way towards sustainability. But I didn't want to produce conclusions. That was some additional views that I have also from previous experience trying to ensure sustainability of other work and the problems that you might encounter. I will now, unless there are any additional final comments or questions of anybody here on the call, just one more opportunity if somebody would like to join something, to share something or add something. If that is not the case, may I ask Juliane to, or do I see correctly, Cornelia, you would like to have one additional comment or?
Yes, thank you, Ingo. I think yesterday I participated in the Francophone countries webinar, and one of the interesting points that came up there was actually considering the availability of data and the sustainability of accessing data to do secondary data analysis. So there was quite an interesting discussion around data from different countries, the difficulty or the ease that some countries actually has obtaining data. And one of the points that was made was, you know, the NIPN's, I would want to say, raison d'être, for lack of a different word now, you know, is also reliant on, you know, the teams being able to access specific data. So it was an interesting point. I don't want us to per se elaborate because I know we are at time, but I just wanted to say there were quite some interesting discussions and suggestions to possibly pick that up for the future and a next webinar, if you will. So just a chime in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I would like to hand back the microphone to Juliane at C4N in Brussels for closing our webinar. From my perspective, thank you already, everybody, again, for participating and for being here today in this webinar. Back over to you, Juliane.
Thank you very much, Ingo. Thank you very much to the presenters for Niger, Julien, and for Ethiopia, Musi. And thank you also for this very vibrant discussion we had at the end, and we could share our experience. Sustainability, Ingo, as you were mentioning it, should start as early as possible, as it can take a long time, right? We heard from different aspects of sustainability at the very beginning. Niger, the Niger study found that establishing the added value is key to start with ownership and commitments. A very important aspect of sustainability is institutionalization. And the programmatic organigram that NIPN is involved in those programming parts, or the national statistical strategy was mentioned earlier from Julien. The most important topic around sustainability was found in the topic of funding. Securing funding externally or internally through the institutionalization is a very important factor to sustainability. And with having that said, maybe also the sentence we all know, failing to plan is planning to fail. I think having a clear vision was pointed out by Ethiopia to be the key to having NIPN, having a sustainable NIPN strategy. Having that said, I would like to close and again thank you for our discussions today, for our exchange today. We will share the presentations with you, and we'll also share our webinar online with you. So thank you very much for your presence, for your participation, and stay safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and bye-bye. Have a good day, good evening, and depending on your time zones.